Merci d'être là. Merci d'être là. Thank you very much. Merci d'être là. Merci Fast Air Hangar. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais reconnaître des candidats extraordinaires, conservateurs, qui font partie de notre belle équipe pour mettre le Canada d'abord, pour faire changement. I'd like to just take a moment to point out the incredible team that is going to put Canada first for a change. The common sense conservative candidates. We have Grant Jackson, Lachlan Dinardi, Colin Reynolds, Raquel Dancho, Brendan Leslie, Ted Falk, Dan Mazier, Sholap Agbula, James Bazan, Thomas Babrick, Royden Brousseau, Janice Morley-Lecomte, and Rachel Punzalan. Are they all here? Did we miss anybody? There we go. Way to go. That's the team. C'est l'équipe conservatrice manitobaine. Oh, Marty, the great Marty Morans. How could I forget? Marty was the man who first called the inflation crisis. He was the one at the Finance Committee who said, give him a round of applause. A quick story, a quick diversion. Before we knew each other, we were sitting in this parliamentary committee and they were talking about this program called ISIP. Apparently it's an acronym, and he texted me and he said, what do you think of ISIP? And I texted back, I sip Crown Royal. What do you sip? And the next day he had a nice bottle of Manitoba-made Crown Royal. So he's a very quick thinker and a man with good taste. Merci d'être là tout le monde. La dernière décennie a été difficile pour les Canadiens, surtout nos travailleurs. C'est pour ça que je suis ici aujourd'hui pour permettre de partager un peu d'espoir. Fast Air, c'est une entreprise qui permet de fournir des services avioniques pour ceux et celles qui travaillent dans le secteur. C'est des très bons travailleurs avec beaucoup d'habilité. Et c'est un succès canadien qui souligne la promesse du Canada, que quiconque de partout au pays peut travailler fort pour accomplir leurs rêves. Mais la dernière décennie a été difficile pour ces travailleurs. Les salaires à travers le Canada ont chuté. Le coût du logement, de l'épicerie et de l'essence ont augmenté à cause des taxes et la bureaucratie libérale. Aujourd'hui, les Canadiens dépensent plus en impôts que sur le logement, la nourriture et des vêtements. Imaginez encore l'injustice de tout ça. Vous dépensez plus pour agrandir la taille de l'État au gouvernement que vous dépensez pour tous vos besoins familiales maintenant. Pourtant, le déficit fédéral, lui, continue d'augmenter, alimentant l'inflation. Après la décennie perdue des libéraux avec des coûts et la criminalité en hausse et notre économie en baisse et sous la botte des États-Unis, le Canada ne peut pas se permettre un quatrième mandat libéral. Nous avons besoin de nouveaux gouvernements conservateurs qui écoutent les travailleurs, libèrent notre économie et donnent la priorité au Canada pour faire changement. Cette relance, ça commence avec l'équité fiscale pour nos travailleurs canadiens. Imaginez que vous êtes un tuteur de Timmins et vous avez besoin d'aller à Fort Mac, où vous allez travailler, ou vous êtes de Nouvelle-Écosse, mais vous avez besoin d'aller à Terre-Neuve afin de travailler. Vous êtes peut-être un bûcheron qui se rend dans le grand nord de l'Ontario, un travailleur de la construction qui se rend à l'intérieur de la Colombie-Britannique. Ces travailleurs font des grands voyages pour bâtir des choses. Mais aujourd'hui, ils ne peuvent que déduire 4 000 $ pour se rendre aux endroits pour travailler. Et c'est 4 000 en total pour tous les voyages qu'ils font. Donc, évidemment, certains font une quinzaine de voyages de travail dans un an. Et ça peut coûter des dizaines de milliers de dollars. Les entreprises ne pourront déduire. Maintenant, on voit aussi, par contre, que les PDG qui ont des avions privés de luxe ont maintenant le droit de déduire 100% de tous leurs vols et même l'achat de l'avion. Donc, considérons un pompier, excuse-moi, un plombier, un charpentier ou un tuteur qui gagne 100 000 $ par an ne peut pas déduire ses voyages de travail, mais le PDG qui gagne 10 millions de dollars peut le faire avec un avion de luxe. Ce n'est pas juste. C'est pour ça qu'aujourd'hui, j'annonce qu'un gouvernement conservateur va rétablir de justice dans notre système. On va permettre tous les travailleurs de déduire tous les coûts nécessaires pour se rendre au travail, y compris la nourriture, le transport et le logement, sans aucun plafond. Et en plus, on va rendre plus éligibles des différents types de voyages. Par exemple, maintenant, ils peuvent simplement déduire le coût des voyages de plus de 150 km. On va réduire ça à 120 km. En plus, les voyages qui ne comprennent pas une nuit ne sont pas éligibles maintenant. On va les rendre éligibles pour permettre les travailleurs qui vont de loin, mais juste pour un jour, de pouvoir déduire le coût de se déplacer. On sait que c'est nécessaire pour protéger le chèque de paie des gens. Il y a un principe très simple dans notre système d'impôt. Vous devriez pouvoir déduire le coût que vous payez afin de gagner le revenu, et pas plus. Les PDG n'ont pas besoin des avions de luxe pour faire leur travail. Ils peuvent se rendre pour des réunions outre-mer dans les vols commerciaux. Donc, aujourd'hui, j'annonce aussi que les avions corporatifs de luxe ne seront plus éligibles pour être déduits des impôts. Des vols réclamés pour les raisons des impôts vont simplement être l'équivalent des vols commerciaux. Donc, on va donner un système qui traite nos travailleurs aussi bien que nos PDG. Il faut une justice pour protéger nos travailleurs qui travaillent fort, qui bâtissent notre pays, et non pas juste l'élite mondaine, coopérative et globaliste, qui passe partout dans les avions privés de luxe en recevant une subvention du système d'impôt. On sait que ce n'est pas Mark Carney, qui est le premier ministre depuis plus d'un siècle, depuis 1909, de ne pas avoir un ministre de Travail qui va protéger les travailleurs. En tant que banquier d'investissement, Mark Carney a délocalisé les emplois hors de Canada. Et pendant son mandat comme président de Brookfield Management, ces entreprises ont eu un bilan brutal et cruel en matière de répression syndicale et d'atteinte aux droits des travailleurs à s'organiser. La branche d'assurance de son entreprise a tiré profit du refus de rembourser les frais médicaux aux mineurs de charbon mourant de la silicose. Et dans une autre affaire, une enquête menée par le Conseil national américain des relations du travail a révélé 43 violations du droit du travail dans son entreprise. Les travailleurs et les travailleuses du Canada méritent mieux qu'un 4e mandat d'un gouvernement libéral dirigé par un banquier mondialiste déconnecté, faible et compromis, avec un bilan anti-syndical, anti-travailleur et anti-canadien. M. Carney et les libéraux ont dirigé le gouvernement le plus anti-ouvrier de l'histoire canadienne. Un demi-billion de dollars d'investissement a quitté le Canada pour les États-Unis depuis les 10 dernières années, la décennie perdue libérale. L'argent qui aurait pu être dépensé ici pour nos travailleurs, mais a quitté. Et on sait que M. Carney, avec un 4e mandat pour les libéraux, sera synonyme des 4 années supplémentaires de la même chose.
From the second largest city of Mandalay, and that's particularly hard hit. There are reports of people there digging for survivors with their bare hands. Now international aid is starting to arrive, with a team from China arriving in the country according to state media. But getting information from Myanmar remains difficult. Internet access is restricted. Now Myanmar has been embroiled in an armed conflict since the military junta there seized power in a 2021 coup that ousted the democratically elected government. Now the junta has made a rare appeal for international aid, and some aid agencies are mobilizing, including the Red Cross, which says that there is an urgent need for safe access to water as well as housing, and that the next 24 hours remain critical. Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Bangkok.
And as we were just discussing a few moments ago, the fallout continues after U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance's contentious visit to Greenland. Now, this follows President Donald Trump's repeated claims that the United States needs to control the Danish Autonomous Territory for American national security. CBC's Anna Cunningham is following that story from London.
Well, Denmark is not happy about comments made by the US Vice President J.D. Vance when he visited Greenland Friday. This was very much a rapidly revised trip after people in Greenland's capital, Nuuk, said that they would protest any arrival by Vance and his wife, Usha. She had initially planned this as a cultural visit, but in the end, they went nowhere near the capital. Instead, J.D. Vance was seen addressing US troops at this remote US space base in the northwest.
Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change.
And it's those comments that have annoyed Denmark. Greenland is a self-governing Danish territory, and on Friday it signed in a new coalition government. The Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen has released a video message. Take a look at some of what he says.
We are open to criticism, but let me be completely honest. We do not appreciate the tone in which it's being delivered. This is not how you speak to your close allies. And I still consider Denmark and the United States to be close allies. We respect that the United States needs a greater military presence in Greenland, as Vice President Vance mentioned this evening. We, Denmark and Greenland, are very much open to discussing this with you.
Now, he did agree that both Denmark and the US have done too little, he said, in the Arctic since the end of the Cold War. But he said that was because everyone assumed it was a low-tension area. But he says that time is over. He has, in a way, opened the door for talks about working together, but not about giving Greenland to the US. Greenland is already covered by security guarantees under NATO's Article 5, but on Friday, speaking from the White House, President Donald Trump once again made clear what he wants.
We need Greenland, very importantly, for international security. We have to have Greenland. It's not a question of, do you think we can do without it? We can't. If you look at Greenland right now, if you look at the waterways, you have Chinese and Russian ships all over the place.
We know that Greenland is rich in untapped mineral resources, oil and gas. It's also strategically placed. But the problem now for the US administration is it might want Greenland, but neither Greenland, Denmark, nor the European Union agree that that can become a reality. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
As promised, folks, let's take you now to Winnipeg, where the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, is beginning his remarks in English. Let's bring that up now, and let's start listening.
In some places, you can't see Winnipeg from Calgary, even though it's very flat between the two cities. But both Winnipeggers and Calgarians feel at home when they're in each other's cities. So I'm especially happy to be here today at Fast Air where Dylan Fast and his incredible workers are doing Certified Transport Canada approved maintenance, repair, overhaul on the Gulfstream, Hawker, Challenger, King Air, West Wind, Piper, Cessna, Bell 206 series helicopters, and much more. These are extremely qualified workers with real brain power, exactly the type of people we need to rebuild our country after the lost Liberal decade. You know, we have some incredible people who are with us today, including, I should also point out Marty Morance's incredible work fighting against anti-Semitism. I wanted to say that he's been a leading champion fighting anti-Semitism on the floor of the House of Commons. We have Raquel Dancho, who's been fighting crime, pushing to put criminals in jail and keep the streets of Winnipeg and Canada safe. Thank you very much, Raquel. Brendan Leslie was elected in a recent by-election with a huge mandate from his people. Ted Falk, a very important member of a lot of different committees. I worked with him on finance. He's a businessman, a patriot, a great Canadian. Dan Mazur, one of the greatest experts on environment. We have James Bazan, our Shadow Minister of Defense, who's helping rebuild our military. And we have, I'm not going to go through all the candidates not yet elected because they're going to be doing incredible things for all of us as well. And I can't wait to work with each and every one of them with a solid Manitoba contingent, because we need each and every one of them to fight for Canada first, for a change. It's been a hard decade for Canadians. Wages are down, costs are up. Crime is everywhere, and our economy is weak and under the American thumb after the lost Liberal decade. And now they think they deserve a fourth term in power. You know, imagine, today you spend more on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined. You know, we as Conservatives want to unleash the strength of our mighty workers, unleash our economy, and put our country first for a change by delivering tax fairness for everyone. Let me describe the problem we have right now. We have a lot of traveling trades workers. They might live in Timmins and go and work in Fort Mac. They might be from Winnipeg but go to the East Coast offshore. They might live in Quebec and head out to Kitimat, Northwest British Columbia, to help with the LNG Canada project that the previous Conservative government approved. But they can only write off a total of $4,000 a year in costs for their travel. Some of them spend tens of thousands of dollars traveling across the country, but they can't claim it. We have a very simple principle in our income tax system. You get to write off the costs you incur to earn the income that's being taxed. Very simple, but they can't do that. On the other extreme, CEOs, globalist bankers, and other jet setters not only have the ability to write off the full cost of transportation required, they can write off luxurious private jets that they don't need to earn income. Yes, of course, business people have to travel to market their products, to establish relationships, to check on their supply chains, of course. But you can do that by commercial. A luxurious jet is a personal indulgence that should not be subsidized by the tax system, especially when our workers are being shortchanged. And so today, I'm announcing, in the spirit of putting Canada first and backing boots, not suits, our Conservative government will pass the Tax Fairness for Traveling Trades Workers Act, which will allow trades workers to write off the full cost of their food, transportation, and accommodation to go anywhere in Canada doing their jobs. There will no longer be a $4,000 cap. They will not have to stay overnight in order to be eligible for the write-off, and they will only have to travel 120 kilometers for the write-off to be eligible rather than the current 150 kilometers. This will allow a pipe fitter who's going to a job in another province to claim all the costs that are needed for him to go and do that job. And more importantly, that will bring down their taxable income and bring down their tax bill so that they bring home more of each dollar they earn. At the same time, we will get rid of the tax subsidy for luxurious corporate jets. As Prime Minister, I will amend the Income Tax Act so that corporations cannot write off luxury jets. Rather, each flight will only be eligible for a write-off of the equivalent of a commercial airfare. This, of course, will not apply to charter flights that are designed to get workers into remote areas. You see some of these planes back here. I would not be surprised if they are used. There are some mines and other locations where we need to get our trades workers. They get on these planes, and that will continue to be eligible expense to write off so that our people can get where they need to get to build what we need built. Now, we can ensure that Conservatives will always put Canadian workers first for a change. And we know that this is important now, more important than ever, because for the first time in Canadian history, the people who build our homes cannot afford to live in them. More money is spent for a new home on bureaucrats in government who block the home than on the carpenters, electricians, and plumbers who build it. Our workers have been under assault by the Liberal government C-69, which blocks pipelines, mines, and other key projects. The energy cap, which will stop Alberta and Saskatchewan and Newfoundland from growing their oil and gas sector. The anti-nuclear agenda of Stephen Guilbeault, still a Liberal minister, trying to block power stations and small modular nuclear reactors. It takes 17 years to get a mine approved in Canada. Meanwhile, a small corporate elite takes Canadian money out of our country into other places. $500 billion of net investment has flown to the United States, more than has come back. Of course, no one is a greater example of selling out Canada to fill his pockets than Mark Carney himself. He moved his headquarters from Canada to New York City just 6 days after Trump first promised tariffs. He supported a carbon tax in Canada while profiting off U.S. coal. He testified in a parliamentary committee against the Northern Gateway pipeline, all while his company invests in pipelines in the Middle East. And of course, he jets around in private comfort, luxurious planes, all while his company breaks unions, had 41 infractions against labor rules, according to the U.S. Labor Bureau, denied coal miners their insurance benefits as they were dying of black lung. And of course, we all know that if he is given a chance, he will continue these anti-worker globalist policies. And don't forget that replacing Justin Trudeau with his economic advisor and hand-picked successor will only mean giving Liberals a 4th term in power. It will be the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal strategists, and the same Liberal promises they've been breaking for the last 10 years. Only difference is that now we will have an even weaker and more conflicted and compromised leader in Mark Carney. The last 10 years were about the Liberals. The next 10 years need to be about you. And that's why we need to put Canada first for a change. We need someone who can be trusted to stand by his word. On this point as well, Mark Carney cannot be trusted. We learned that he'll be saying all kinds of things over the next month to try and trick Canadians. But this is a man who says whatever he has to. We just learned yesterday that he plagiarized to get his way through university. The National Post, the London Telegraph, and the Times of London all reported at least 10 instances of plagiarism in his PhD thesis. He cheated to get his credentials, and now he will say whatever he has to get power. My vision is to stand up for the same things I've been saying for 10 years and doing the 10 years before that. Conservatives have not changed the direction one iota. We've always been for axing the industrial carbon tax and all of the carbon tax for everyone, everywhere, for good, for a change. We've always opposed the anti-energy laws because we want to unleash Canada's production here at home. We have always said we want to approve LNG plants to ship our prodigious energy overseas and bring home hundreds of billions of dollars that does not rely on the U.S. We've always said we wanted to cut income tax, and we have restated that in our platform with a plan to cut income tax by 15% for the average worker in Canada. We always said we want to get taxes out of the way to build homes our youth can afford, and so we reiterate we will axe the GST on new homes to save people up to $65,000 on the cost of a home. We've always said we want to stand up for safety in our communities. We will repeal the catch and release hug-a-thug Liberal laws that have unleashed crime on the streets of Winnipeg. We will lock up repeat offenders. And in the case of serious violent offenders, fentanyl dealers, human traffickers, gun smugglers, they will get life sentences. They will only come out in a box. We will rebuild our borders and secure our military future with solid funds and a solid recruitment for the brilliant young men and women who protect all of us. In other words, we will put Canada and Canadian workers first for a change by restoring Canada's promise, a promise that anyone from anywhere can do anything, where hard work gets you a great life on a safe street, in a beautiful house, under our proud flag, Canada first. Let's bring it home. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to questions. Please say your name and outlet.
Hi there, Eddie Huband, City News Winnipeg. I just have a question about two key infrastructure projects. The Port of Churchill, which the federal government recently contributed or promised $175 million in funding for maintenance and things of that nature. And then the North End Sewage Treatment Plant, another project that the federal government has contributed over $150 million in funding. And even with that, it's still drastically underfunded. My question is, if elected, would your government be continuing to support these projects financially and picking up the tab of what the current government has promised, so to speak?
We'll honor those funding commitments, but more importantly, we'll get it done. Right now, infrastructure projects are ensnared in endless delay and bureaucracy. So it takes years to get the permitting. We're going to have a simple rule, one and done, one environmental review, one simple application, and in the case of large-scale industrial projects, no more than 1 year to get a permit. I've also announced that we will expand and we will build up the Port of Churchill. I think we need to come up with a plan to export our oil out of the Port of Churchill. Of course, that could be done either by rail or by pipeline. That will not happen unless you repeal this Liberal law C-69. Churchill will never be a big functioning port if the Liberals get a fourth term in power, because their radical environmental agenda will prevent anything from getting built. After the lost Liberal decade, it takes 17 years for a mine to get approved. It is impossible to get a pipeline built. They're capping our oil and gas sector and taxing our industry with a big industrial tax that'll drive jobs out. We can't have a fourth Liberal term of costs and crime up and our economy down under the American thumb. We need a new Conservative government to put Canada first for a change by approving pipelines, getting things built, unleashing production, bringing home our jobs so that we're strong enough to stand up to the Americans from a position of strength. Thank you very much.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Merci. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. On va honorer les engagements de financement, mais en plus, on va les réaliser.
We will actually get the work done. After the lost Liberal decade, bureaucracy is delaying projects and preventing construction. We will remove red tape. One environmental review, no more. Second, with respect to the Port of Churchill now, we absolutely must accelerate projects so that we can get our oil and gas to new markets. That includes building pipelines, something that I support. But there will be no pipelines with Bill C-69 under the Liberals, so we must repeal that legislation and the legislation that caps our energy production, and quickly greenlight projects and allow billions of dollars to move into the Port of Churchill to serve foreign markets in order to get around the U.S. market. We have become too dependent on a market that is not dependable. So our conservative approach, now this is after 10 years. We simply cannot support a fourth term for the Liberals who drove up costs and weakened our economy. We need a conservative government that will put Canada first and build things.
Thank you. We'll now go to the next question.
Steve Lambert from the Canadian Press. Mr. Poilievre, good morning. I've got a question regarding the landfill search for the victims of a serial killer recently in the Winnipeg area. You said roughly a year ago that you would look to criminal justice reforms to protect First Nations, Indigenous people, offer them more protection.
Right.
What exactly would that mean? And secondly, what would a Conservative government do to help families in similar situations get the search? Because the families involved fought for more than 2 years to get a search underway.
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to these families. I can't even imagine the torment that these years have brought them. And I know that the search is necessary, and even though it is very painful for those involved. Unfortunately, First Nations people are disproportionately the victims of violent crime. The lost Liberal decade of catch and release laws has turned loose the same repeat offenders over and over and over again. I can only imagine the terror that some communities live in, where an offender keeps coming back to physically attack and even kill members of the community, but constant bail, parole, house arrest, not second or third chances, but 75th chances for the same offender. This crime and chaos is the direct result of Liberal C-75, catch and release, Liberal C-5, house arrest, and there's also C-83, which allows the most brutal offenders, including Paul Bernardo, out of maximum security penitentiaries. Giving the Liberals a fourth term in power will only unleash even more crime, victimization, and drug overdoses for all Canadians. That's why it's time to put Canada and law-abiding Canadians first for a change, with a new Conservative government that will repeal the soft-on-crime laws, lock up repeat offenders for good, secure our borders, and fight against drug addiction. We will, as I said the other day, bring in life sentences for mass fentanyl dealers, gun smugglers, and human traffickers. Human trafficking targets disproportionately First Nations people as well. And that will allow us to protect all the people of our country and put the safety of Canadians first. Thank you.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Merci. Merci tout d'abord.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to offer my support and my prayers to the families who are living through this hell that I can barely imagine. The sadness, the anger, the anguish that these families are experiencing now is terrible, and we will support those families and ensure that in the future, families finding themselves in these horrible circumstances will receive the support they need for their children. Obviously, the First Nations members are often the victims of crime, and that is partly the result of automatic release of the worst repeat offenders that has come about because of the Liberals. And the Liberals have allowed people to serve their sentence in their living room. This is the result of Liberal policies. And in fact, some offenders, hours after their last offense, are released. And of course, there's also the case of allowing Paul Bernardo to leave a medium security prison to be put in a maximum to a medium. So these are the things that have happened in the last Liberal decade. And if the Liberals are elected for a fourth term, they will again be releasing dangerous criminals. So we need a new government, a new Conservative government that will put Canada and Canadians, law-abiding Canadians, first for a change. We will repeal Liberal laws such as C-75, C-5, and C-83. We will create life sentences for gun smugglers, fentanyl trafficking, and human trafficking offenders. And we will introduce life sentences and remove the catch and release policies of the Liberals. We need to keep the worst criminals in jail. We want to protect Canadian citizens, and so no fourth term for the Liberals after a lost Liberal decade. That would be dangerous. We need a new Conservative government that will put Canadians and Canadian safety first for a change.
To the next question. Hi, Melissa Ridgen from Global News and CJOB. Certainly a bigger appetite now for tariff-related talk. Is there something that we can, a strategy shift that we can expect to see from you guys going forward for tariff relief, tariff announcements, that sort of thing? Can you share with us?
Well, we will obviously retaliate against unfair American tariffs and work to eliminate them. But what we really need to do is reverse the weakness caused by the lost Liberal decade. They blocked pipelines, LNG plants, mines, nuclear power, and forced Canadians to give 75% of their exports to the Americans. After the lost Liberal decade, costs and crime are up, and our economy is down under the American thumb. That's why we need to put Canada first with a new Conservative government that will unlock our resources, repeal anti-energy laws, build pipelines, mines, LNG plants, axe taxes for our industry, investors, home builders, and workers, allowing us to bring back the $500 billion that Liberals have pushed out of our country. In other words, we don't know exactly what the Americans are going to do. The president seems to change his mind from time to time, but we know what we can do. What we can do is take back control of our economic destiny, build an economic fortress by bringing home production, unlocking our resources, and standing strong for our economy here at home. Thank you.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup. I should just say one last thing in English, is that the things that I'm calling for here, these are the things that we've been saying for the last 10 years. If you want to question who's actually going to do these things, well, you have to vote for the ones who always stood for it. Because the only way to get Conservative policies is to vote Conservative. The Liberals will say whatever they have to say to win, but they'll go right back to their radical policies. They have the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal strategists, and the same Liberal agenda, no matter what they tell you. The only difference is they have a weaker and more compromised leader, and they've brought on even more radical people, like Gregor Robertson, the former mayor of Vancouver. Like, this guy is totally radical. He wants to distribute free drugs everywhere in the streets. He was against pipelines and all oil and gas. If you think that the Liberals are going to be any different in the next 4 years than they've been in the last decade, then you will be very disappointed. We need a new Conservative government that will put Canada first for a change. En français, on va riposter si les Américains
we will retaliate if the United States hits us again with unjustified and unjustifiable tariffs. But we have to reverse the weakness caused by the lost Liberal decade. The Liberals blocked pipelines, LNG plants, mines, nuclear plants. They forced us to send our exports to the United States at the lowest prices, and now we're more dependent on the United States than ever before. If you think the Liberals will suddenly change because they change what they say 30 days before an election, I can tell you it'll be the same Liberal policies, the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal MPs who have done what they did in the last 10 years. And what you need is a new leader. And we have Stephen Guilbeault. He's not the only radical member of the Liberal Party. These people want to simply shut down our industries, but I want to get rid of the carbon tax on all industries, repeal anti-pipeline legislation, C-69, remove the cap on energy production, quickly approve dams and nuclear plants and other industrial projects so that we can become more self-reliant, become a true economic fortress, so that we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength. That is what putting Canada first means.
Question from the phone line, and this will be the last question.
Marianne with Franco.
Bonjour.
Oui, bonjour.
Hello.
Oui, bonjour. Donc, j'aimerais vous entendre sur la protection
I'd
du
like
français,
you to
premièrement, à
comment on the
l'extérieur du
protection
Québec.
of French
Maintenant que la loi
outside
sur la langue
Quebec.
officielle a été modernisée,
Now that
j'aimerais
the
savoir
Official
quelle est la
Languages Act
prochaine
has
étape
been
pour les
modernized,
francophones
we're
en
wondering what the
Québec,
next step will
selon
be
vous.
for
Et deuxièmement, pour
francophones
Québec,
outside
est-ce qu'un
Quebec.
gouvernement conservateur
And
interviendrait en Cour suprême dans la contestation de la loi 96?
we're wondering whether a conservative government would intervene in the court process in Quebec. In answer to your last question, no, we will not interfere. That is a matter for Quebec jurisdiction. We respect bilingualism and linguistic duality in Canada. And we want federal programs to be in place across the country. We will be promoting the French language and broadening, expanding immersion programs to allow Anglophone young people to learn French. I had an opportunity to do that after I lost my French roots in my youth. I was able to go to Chicoutimi for a very valuable immersion program, and that's something that all young people should be able to do in future. That will be part of our election platform, and we supported an expansion of language rights through the Bilingualism Act in the House of Commons. And I know that the French language is encountering certain difficulties right now, so we need to protect it and strengthen. We need to strengthen our French roots right across the country. And conservatives recognize that French is one of the founding languages of this country. We want to strengthen it and maintain it. That's what we like to do as conservatives. We want to keep the good things in Canada, such as the French language.
Okay. Yeah, we will not be contesting it. Provinces have the right to make their own laws, and we will be standing with. The question was as well, what will we be doing to promote official languages? We support official bilingualism, and we will back up official bilingualism right across the country in all federal services and programs. We will also increase opportunities for young people to do immersion programs so that they can learn French. We need more French speaking right across the country. We want to conserve our languages, our founding two languages, but in particular French, because it is our founding language, and of course it is always a fight to maintain it because of the enormous demographic reality in our continent. But conservatives will protect the French language, will protect official bilingualism, and we will conserve our beautiful country and all that the blessings that it has brought us. That's what it means, of course, to put Canada first. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much.
If you're just joining us here on CBC News Network, hello, my name is Natasha Fata, and we've been taking you live to Winnipeg, where the Conservative Party leader on this day 7 of the federal election campaign has been speaking in Winnipeg. He's brought forward a new policy that the Conservatives would put into effect if they are elected as government, and it's specifically to help trades workers. Here's what the new policy, according to Pierre Poilievre, would offer. Traveling trades workers will be able to write off the full cost of food, transportation, and accommodation if they're moving anywhere within Canada. Adding to that, he says he wants to amend the Income Tax Act so that billionaires can no longer write off luxury corporate jets. A very specific announcement today, but he also took opportunities to talk about workers and giving them a better life. He talked about crime, about taxation, rebuilding the borders, defense, and of course, he talked about tariffs because there's a lot going on in this election cycle. Let's turn to CBC's Alexander Silberman, who's been following all of this for us from Ottawa. So, Alexander, I wonder from everything we just heard from the Conservative Party leader, what stood out for you?
Well, we heard the Conservative Party leader make another announcement really targeting tradespeople, blue-collar workers, a voting bloc he's tried to appeal to over the first week of the campaign. We saw him make several policy announcements at construction sites, housing projects, and holding events in a number of rallies. So really going after those groups with his talk of boots, not suits, trying to appeal to them with his policy proposals at the start of this campaign. This policy, of course, a tax credit that would allow these workers to write off the full cost of their travel expenses, food, transportation, accommodation. They can currently write off up to $4,000. Now, if they have to travel more than 120 kilometers to get from their home to their work site, they'll be able to write off the full cost of those travel expenses. The Conservatives have not said how much this would cost the federal government, so still some details to learn on that policy proposal.
Alexander, I wonder if we can dig a bit deeper into the issue of when Pierre Poilievre was questioned about tariffs and how he plans on responding to Donald Trump's ongoing threats for putting tariffs on Canadian goods coming into the United States, particularly since in just a few days, there's an altogether high possibility that on April 2nd, we're going to be hit with another set of tariffs.
Yeah, that's right, Natasha. That question there and the response from Poilievre, I think, was very telling and very much right in line with his approach throughout this campaign so far when it comes to his messaging and his response. For the most part, really avoiding discussing the trade war and discussing Trump. He was asked, will there be a strategy shift around U.S. tariffs? Will that change the campaign for you? And he went straight to kind of his usual criticism of the Liberals' record when it comes to crime and the economy. I'm not directly addressing and confronting Trump or speaking about how he would position himself to address the issue of the trade war. He went ahead and said, we don't know what Trump will do, and basically saying it's better for Canadians to focus on domestic issues given that uncertainty. He also went ahead and added a comment there, which was interesting, saying, reminding Canadians that he's been saying the same things all along over a number of years. Very much the case here. We're hearing the same messaging, the same issues from Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives that we heard 6 months ago when they were ahead in the polls. That hasn't changed much. We're hearing them talk about affordability, carbon taxes, crime, concerns over the cost of living. But that seems to be losing appeal lately with this reality shift with Trump's trade war and those changes and threats of tariffs. So that initial game plan of just continuing the same message for Poilievre, focusing on cutting taxes, building homes, that seems to have been undercut by this crisis. No indication there from Poilievre that he's going to change his game plan or change his messaging going forward with how he responded to that question. But there's concern within the party given where things are at. We're seeing those polling numbers decline. There's certainly concern over the collapse of the NDP here, which the Conservatives were hoping would eat away at Liberal votes in many key ridings. So we'll have to watch and see if the party changes its messaging in the coming days and if we see Poilievre start to talk more about Trump.
Okay. Alexander Silberman in Ottawa, thanks so much for this.